Well, good morning. Unlike the endless wars of the past that dragged on for years and for decades with little to show for it, Operation Epic Fury has delivered a decisive military result in just weeks. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, as the president has pointed out, all took years, decades. Vague missions, shifting sands, little to show for it. Operation Epic Fury has been laser focused from the very start, as I've said to all of you. Clear mission objectives, and ultimately, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. It's a bold and dangerous mission, a gift to the world, historic, courtesy of a bold and historic president.
It hurts like right there. It goes across here. It's my Hegseth headache. Hi, that's Pete Hegseth just this morning on his news conference, boldly talking about our bold war with a bold president in a bold way, and all these things. Except the war's not over yet. And the objectives are written in sand because I think the objective now is to open the Strait of Hormuz, which was open 7 weeks ago before we started bombing Iran. And the military experts told the president that they'd close the Strait of Hormuz. It is, he compared it to Afghanistan and Vietnam and Korea. You know, the difference between all those wars is they fought us first, they attacked us. We didn't just decide to go in with only one ally, Israel in this case, who seems to be running their own war, separate from ours. The cockiness and the lies are unbelievable with this administration, and Hegseth is the worst. And so here he goes, and it'd be funny, it'd almost be humorous if it wasn't the fact that our sons and daughters are in harm's way because of this ludicrous leadership. And to say it's not going to go on forever, we don't know that. Literally just yesterday, the president snapped at a reporter because she dared ask him how long we should expect it to go. And he said, well, what about Vietnam? Vietnam was a really long war, okay? And then Afghanistan was the longest war in American history. So literally they're bragging about how they accomplished all their objectives, and the war is not over yet. And it goes on and on. But here's where it gets super, super ludicrous, because Pete just can't stop himself, because we have to give credit to Trump just in case he's watching.
Europe and Asia have benefited from our protection for decades, but the time for free riding is over. America and the free world deserve allies who are capable, who are loyal, and who understand that being an ally is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. We are not counting on Europe, but they need the Strait of Hormuz much more than we do, and might want to start doing less talking and having less fancy conferences in Europe and get in a boat. This is much more their fight than ours. On this core,
we started the fight. We didn't consult with Europe. We didn't tell them we're going to attack a regional powerhouse. We just did it. And now he says it's their fight. And the lies in that just minute, what is it, 40 seconds? 40 seconds. It's shocking to I can't even keep count that they need to straight more we do. That's news to a lot of my friends and neighbors in my region right here, where they can't afford gas. Fertilizer is in doubt. Delivery of fertilizer is in doubt. Key chemicals are in doubt. The gas supply that Trump got rid of, the national gas reserve, is being drained. Our oil, diesel has at a record high. I mean, I could go on for the entire show with all the things that are wrong with just that one statement, how Europe needs it more than we do. And then let's not even talk about the dismissive, snarky, poisonous terminology. Well, they're having conferences. We don't do conferences. We just blow shit up. And there's something I say a lot when I speak lately is, look, we've always been good at blowing things up. How do I know? I've been there. I was there for when we blew a lot of stuff in Desert Storm. I was there when we blew a lot of stuff up in Iraqi freedom. And then I went back to Iraq 2 more times while we kept on blowing up stuff, which ended up being one of the longest wars in American history, because we're really good at blowing up stuff. But anybody who studied war with any maturity knows blowing up stuff is a small part of it. We've always been good at blowing up stuff, but that's not how you end wars. Wars don't end. In the history of ever, probably the only one that ever with blowing stuff up was in the end, World War II, when we dropped an atomic bomb. But that was after 5 years of fighting. okay, or a decade, or it was 4 years in Japan. On and on, you can go on and on about the ludicrous nature of these arguments that this war is gonna be easy. And that's before we get to people like Tom Cotton and this bullshit.
And Sean, I think this is the typical Iranian playbook. They're trying to tap America along. Iran has never won a war, but they've never lost a negotiation. They never sat across the table negotiating with the guy that wrote The Art of the Deal. President Trump has proven time and again, from the Soleimani strike to Operation Midnight Hammer to Operation Epic Fury, that he won't allow the Iranians to tap him along. He just reiterated.
I almost need a cigarette watching that afterwards. I mean, I don't know if you could make anything more, weird and horny for President Trump and all the lies within that. They've never won a war, but they've never lost a negotiation. Guys, they haven't lost a war yet. And the idea that just blowing up a 50-year-old Air Force and blowing up a bunch of boats it means it's over. This isn't, look, as I've said in the show multiple times, war isn't a football game. You don't run up the score. Nothing matters. You can run up the score all day long. You can kill till your heart's content. But it's not a game. It's not like sports. Okay, war is not a sport. It's not who gets the most kills. Okay, otherwise we would have won Vietnam. We would have won every war because we're really good at that. In the end, it's who owns the ground. And right now, I don't know if you noticed, Vietnam is run by the people we were fighting. Afghanistan is run by the people we were fighting. North Korea still exists. Okay. So all these examples they keep using aren't very great examples. And Iran hasn't lost this war yet because there's a difference between getting your ass kicked and losing a war. And these cocky fools don't get that. They think it's a game of running up the scores and the stupidity that goes with it. This is, for me, the last clip I'll show you before we go to our guest, because we got a lot to talk about beyond all this, but it's also tied to it. This is another one. This is today's Pentagon. For those who don't know, although I spent 18 years of my military career as a helicopter pilot, those things and others, okay, I did that. But my last 5 years of my career was as a military spokesman, or people like General David Petraeus and General Marty Dempsey, where I coordinated press conferences and stuff like that. We had very serious discussions with very serious journalists. And then there's this.
Charlie Cotton from Team ZDC. You changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Would you consider changing the name again to the Department of Peace, since that's what we're all after?
Well, that's the pursuit. It's a great question, actually. You go from defense to war because you want to be proactive about peace through strength. And really, I gave a speech in front of generals about what the ethos of the War Department is all about, because I wanted to go through every echelon of this department. It means something. It's not just words. And when you fight a war the right way, the idea is on the other side, you bring about peace. That is what we'd like to see the most. In fact, I once did a video about the one institution that should win the Nobel Peace Prize every single year is the United States military, because we are the guarantor of the safety and security of not just of our country, but of a lot of people in this world. Last question.
TMZ. Great question, TMZ. Why don't you name the Department of Peace? Oh, yeah. I did a video on that. I'm sorry. Right now, there's a United States sailor, young man, young woman. I don't know which. We don't know which. There's a young man or young woman somewhere, probably still in Central Command because these clowns can't rotate troops, who pushed the button that launched a Tomahawk missile that took out a school with 171 girls and teachers in it. Right now, that person knows it. Because I guarantee you, folks, as soon as the news came out that we had hit a school, every targeteer in the theater went into their system to find out if it was one of theirs. And that targeteer right now knows it was them. And this clown refuses to acknowledge that ever occurred, says there's an investigation. Look, the investigation matters because there's a young man or woman who's going to carry that burden the rest of their lives if they push the button that killed children. And we owe it to that young man or woman to find out what happened. Was it bad intelligence? Was it a grid coordinate that was one digit off? What did it? Why did we kill those kids? So to act like it never happened and we're this peaceful, okay, because the rest of the world knows that kids got killed, because that's war. And war is ugly. War is dangerous. When there's bullets and missiles flying, they hit the wrong things a lot. I know. And the cockiness of this man with his ridiculous outfits and his ridiculous words undermines the American warrior ethos in every way, because the American warrior ethos doesn't dance in the end zone after we killed kids. Okay. And so despise Pete Hegseth with every fiber of my being because he is against everything I was taught as a soldier and as a leader in the United States Army for 22 years. And it's a very serious business. And I don't believe for 1 second that Pete Hegseth or the people in his orbit in the Pentagon believe that war is a serious business. They think it's a video game where you can run up the score. Whoever gets the most kills wins. But if you study war for more than a minute, that's not how war works. War is not a game of who gets the most kills. It's a game of strategy. It's a game of diplomacy. It's a game of logistics, which is a whole nother conversation we haven't had yet about the fact we're running out of missiles. I could go on, but I won't. It's more important we talk to our guest. And I got a great guest as always. Josh Rogin, Washington Post, is a renowned writer. He's an award-winning author. He's written books about these situations. There's a lot going on that Josh has been covering the last 2 weeks, so I'm honored and privileged to get him on the show. I am Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy, FP Wellman, every Friday night right here at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Midas Touch Network. So glad to see so many of the Midas Mighty joining us tonight, and hope you're watching it this weekend because there's a lot to talk about. So let's get on with the show. I got a lot to talk about. Hey, welcome back. I'm Fred Wellman. Still, it's been 30 seconds, 15 seconds I talked to you. There's a lot to talk about. Not to mention, we talked a lot about the war and today's press conference in the beginning here, but let's also talk about some other crazy stuff that's going on. And Josh, let's bring on our guest, Josh Rogin. Josh, man, welcome to the show. It's great to have you, brother. Lead industry analyst for global security for WP Intelligence, columnist, the Global Opinion section of the Post, award-winning career, degrees in international affairs. Same one I've got. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you on the Midas Touch.
Thanks for having me on, Fred.
So you had quite a week. Quite a take from Hegseth this morning. As you watch those videos, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens, first of all, when you kick all of or most of the legitimate press out of the Pentagon. You get these sort of, ridiculous theatrical press conferences that meander through sort of, lies to fantasies to arguments to grievances to Trump hagiography. And it's just, it's not just an embarrassment, for the military. It's an embarrassment for the country. People all over the world are watching this and they understand that this is our leadership now. And of course, our men and women in uniform are the primary, people who are affected by that, as well as the people of Iran, obviously. But this is not the way to run a railroad. And, what's so Orwellian about it is that, this idea of, love equals hate, peace equals war, the gaslighting,
Right.
the misdirection is it doesn't really work. There's nobody out there who can credibly believe Secretary Hegseth when he says everything's fine, because obviously everything's not fine. And nobody can credibly believe Secretary Hegseth when he says this is all going to according to plan, because obviously it's not going to a plan. The way that we know that is President Trump admits it all the time, because President Trump has a stream of consciousness where he mixes his lies with the truth. And he admitted that he didn't anticipate that the Iranians were going to close the strait. And he admitted that he was shocked that they attacked our Gulf allies. And, he did think that it was going to be a couple of few weeks and then we would be out of there and there would be regime change. And none of those things were true. So Trump, in a way, already admitted several times that he got this one totally wrong. He just doesn't care. And Hegseth is the one trying to square that by gaslighting everybody. And I just don't think it works. That's why we have the most unpopular war in American history. And the fact that he doesn't have the self-awareness to realize that in Vietnam and Iraq, everyone said the exact same thing. This will be quick. We won't get bogged down. I'm old enough to remember when Donald Rumsfeld said the Iraq war would be 6 weeks, 6 months at the most. That's what
I was sitting in Iraq when he said it. Yeah. We knew
history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes.
Yeah, and the soldiers leading this war are the ones that heard that. I know many of them. They were sitting in Iraq when those things were said, and we knew it wasn't true then. And it's scary to think we've placed our service members in that position again, where they know the truth as they float for the longest float in the history of an aircraft carrier, on and on. And they're sitting here waiting for the truth to flow. And we are flowing more troops in the Middle East, so they're trying to cover that up. I mean, it is a very, very dangerous and slippery slope we're on, isn't it?
Yes, with no clear way out, because there's no way to conduct nuanced, tough diplomacy in an environment where the president is alternatively threatening war crimes and destroying civilizations, and then claiming everything is hunky-dory and the strait is open, and then going back to the war crimes and then back to the the gaslighting. And in that environment, maybe he's trying to communicate to his base, maybe he's trying to communicate to the Iranians, or both or neither, and it's just chaos. It's chaos inside of our government. It's chaos, of course, inside the Iranian system, and the whole world suffers. Every country in the world, every diplomat that I talk to on a daily basis says the same thing. Is and why is it that my citizens in South Korea or Singapore have to drive only every other day of the week for this nonsense? And how is it that we're in this situation where the Ayatollah and Trump have, in a way, worked together to ruin the world economy, and the rest of the 7 people on the globe just have to suffer through it with no end in sight?
No, with no insight. And he's gotten through. It's kind of interesting that the cotton clip's fascinating because he kind of runs through the greatest hits of, Trump bullshit wars, right? The Strike on Soleimani, the Venezuela little fix right now, which has other layers to it we're going to talk about. It's almost like he's finally run into one he can't bullshit his way through. I mean, he's gotten away with bullshitting his way through all these for so long that it's almost like he's finally met his Waterloo in a lot of ways as far as his ability to bullshit his way through things, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what else is he gonna say? Are the Republicans going to admit that Trump led them into a quagmire against everything he campaigned on? And then for people like Cotton and the people inside the administration who want the war to continue, what they have to do is not only pretend that it's going well, but convince Trump that it's going well. So imagine that feedback loop. I hear from Republicans all the time. We just have to keep Trump thinking that the economy is fine, everything's going well. So that way he'll keep the war going. Because Trump is, he wants to get out. He doesn't like it. He wants to go to Beijing and see his friend Xi Jinping. He wants to wrap it up. So that's why he's getting this corrupted feedback loop from his people, because they're trying to convince him everything's okay so that he'll keep the war going, so they can, quote unquote, finish the job, whatever that means. And so he's operating in a bad information environment, which is really crazy when you think about it.
It's terrifying. I mean, I didn't want to run. There's that clip of Lindsey Graham begging him to keep killing people. I don't want to watch it because it just gives me the eeks. I think the kids call it the ick. These days when Lindsey Graham appears on camera, I get the ick. It's like, ugh. I mean, Cotton gives me the ick with. He's amazing, and it really is. We know it's an audience of one they're performing for. They're performing, and that fact they're feeding him so much lies. The fact it'll leak out of his mouth right now. Well, I've got 100% rating right now. That's that one CNN clip where Harry Enn said the last people who call themselves Republicans thinks he's awesome. It is bizarre. We know he's not getting clips. In the old days, we used to do clips for the boss, and there's good news and bad news. He gets all the good news all the time, doesn't he?
Not only that, inside the administration, the yes men have uh, purged anyone with a dissenting opinion. It's not even in the first Trump administration. There were camps, there were factions. People would compete for Trump's attention and his favor and his policies. And there's a lot less of that, and now it's pretty clear if you say something that isn't exactly what he thinks at that moment, you're probably gone. So, over time, it's like, that's what we see in a lot of authoritarian states, to be honest. Eventually you just get one guy who everyone is telling him everything's great all the time. And that feeds a crazy feedback loop where he makes a bunch of terrible decisions and never really has any incentive to undo it, at least until November. I think, like, in November, it'll be very hard for Republicans to ignore the fact that the Iran war ruined the economy and soured their chances even worse than they would have been to keep the Congress. And that's kind of a reckoning that Trump will call rigged, but that he'll have to know in his heart of hearts is partly his fault.
And it's coming. I hear it every day, and it's the fallout of it. It's the moral fallout. It's the economic fallout of it. I mean, it's undeniable as we go about our daily lives right now. Average people can't deny that this is not making life better for anyone. And the lies saying, oh, this is a long, short-term pain, long-term gain, and the lies are falling so flat now. It's
short-term pain and long-term pain.
Yeah,
It's a high short-term price for no long-term adventure. In fact, we're much worse off. We replaced an 86-year-old Ayatollah with a 54-year-old, even more pissed off Ayatollah, who's now got right to blame us for killing his father and his wife and his son. And we the Iranian military, the IRGC, is more in control than ever. They have more control over the Strait of Hormuz than ever. And so, actually, strategically, we're set back. And then the fact that people like Hegseth uses an opportunity to dunk on the Europeans for some reason and further break the U.S. European alliance, which is like is an obvious gift to Russia, China, and Iran
Right.
and North Korea. Is just pouring salt in the wound. They're just making it worse on purpose, egregiously, strategically, in ways that will have consequences for a generation. And that's a
Yeah.
tragedy for our country and for the people in the region who will now, especially the Iranians, who, there's nothing. I've always found with these things, like the more you bomb a people, the less they like you. And to think that Iranians were like, that we told them help is on the way. And then we told them rise up against your oppressors. And then a month later, we're like, yeah, forget about that. We just want to find a Delcy Rodriguez Iranian to keep his foot on your neck and make a deal with us for oil. And what a disgrace, what a betrayal, not just of those people, but of the values that underpin that kind of effort. And it's very possible that we've condemned the Iranian people to more suffering, not less. And shame on us.
Yeah, I agree. And following up, I want to go sponsor break, but you mentioned Z, you mentioned China. There's a pretty good set of reporting. I think you've even been part of that shows that we've depleted our missile stock pretty dramatically. Ted Lieu did a great job in Congress the other day, kind of laying out, the idea of throwing Ferraris at frisbees when we send $4 million missiles. That's a dangerous thing too. Our enemies are watching, right? North Korea is watching. China is absolutely watching. That a lot of cheap drones can deplete a very expensive war machine very quickly, can't they?
Yeah, there's like this debate inside the China watching community over whether or not this war in Iran is good for China or bad for China. Some people will say, well, this is really bad for China because their ally Iran is getting pummeled, and some of their oil is not getting to them. I take the opposite view. I think this war plays right into China's hands, especially Xi Jinping's hands, by draining American resources, ruining America's reputation around the world, fracturing America's alliances, and you know pushing a lot of countries, especially in the third world, into Beijing's waiting arms. And now China looks like a more responsible world power than we are. And what are we going to say about that while we're conducting an unjustified attack that's ruining the world's economy for no real benefit? And so I think China is actually benefiting very, very significantly, especially the longer this war goes on. And the Iranians are trying to compound that. Not to mention the Chinese are helping the Iranians. They're selling
Right.
all sorts of equipment. So they're making money off of this. They're still going to get the Iranian oil, by the way, one way or the other.
Right.
And they are now in a position to say, oh, why don't you just conduct all of the world's oil transactions in Chinese dollars, not American dollars, so that the Americans can't screw with it. And that could be attractive to a lot of countries. So I think it's like you said, we can have tactical wins all day long because our military is awesome, and a strategic loss. That's what we've got. Not just a strategic loss, a strategic catastrophe
It is.
that will play out over years, and if not decades.
And that's before we talk about the damage to the United States military as they've cleaned out house of any kind of leader of color, women. You don't make a general overnight. Somebody said, I was talking to a group of folks here locally last night, that you don't make a general overnight. It's a 20 to 30 year process. So today's lieutenants are 20 years, 30 years from now as generals. And so the damage that's happened in the military too with this activity is not just today, but we'll be handling this for decades to come as we try to root out these Christian nationalists and others that Hegseth is putting in there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's terrible that there's obvious targeting of female and flag officers and flag officers of color, and that's awful. And then there's the idea that Hegseth is just purging anyone who he doesn't like or says anything that he doesn't like, including the chief of staff of the army and the secretary of the Navy, just in the last couple of weeks.
In the middle of a
And
naval war.
yeah, that's not a good idea. And that according to all the reporting I've seen, it's because Hegseth is a supremely insecure leader who fears, like every other Trump cabinet official, that they're one tweet away from getting fired. And so he's purging rivals and getting them out of the building before they can take his job. And, again, that's pretty much what authoritarians do. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like that's not the way to run a military. That's not the way to run a railroad. And yeah, if you were a young, ambitious officer who happens not to agree with everything that Hegseth says all the time, why would you dedicate your life to joining the department that he's in charge of.
Yeah, they're gonna get out now. Well, with that, I think it's a great pick. It's break. We're going back. We got a much bigger topic talking too. I've been following all week. I know you have. That's why I brought you on. So let's take a real brief sponsor break, folks. Stick with us. We got a really fascinating conversation coming up as well. We'll be right back. I know you guys have heard my story of the challenges I faced in my life. I did lose my first wife way back in 1994 when she was 7.5 months pregnant. It was difficult. But one thing that helped me through that very tough process was we had purchased life insurance. And that helped me have financial stability and move forward with my life without having to worry about making ends meet as I moved forward and as I found my footing again. And that's why I tell my friends always it's so important, no matter what stage in life you are, that you find the ability to get some life insurance and protect your family's future and financial stability. It's why I'm very proud to have Ethos as a sponsor. Ethos makes it very easy. It's 100% online. You can get your life insurance through them without having to go through a lot of pain and suffering. You can get a quote in really just seconds and then apply in minutes, and you can have same day coverage through Ethos. There's no medical exam. You do have to answer just a few simple health questions, but that's it. And you can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month through Ethos, and you'll get your lowest rate from their large network of trusted carriers. So they've got, if you wonder, they have 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 40,000 reviews. Now, look, it takes 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Fred. That is ethos.com/Fred. Application times may vary, rates may vary, but I urge you to consider your family's future and go through Ethos to find life insurance that'll protect their stability. Thanks for sponsoring our show. Now we're back. So, John, I don't usually do this, but I got to run this video to kind of intro the next section of our conversation, which is why I reached out to you. Here's Trump's press conference.
Yeah.
Mr. President, apparently there was a special forces soldier who was involved in the capture of Venezuelan President Maduro, who was arrested by federal authorities today on suspicion of insider trading and betting on Polymarket. Are you concerned that federal employees are betting on these prediction markets and potentially getting rich?
Well, I don't know about it, but was he betting that they would get him or they wouldn't get him?
It sounds like he was betting on his removal from office, that Maduro would be removed.
That's interesting.
He was involved in the operation.
That's like Pete Rose betting on his own team. It's a little like Pete Rose. Pete Rose, they kept him out of the Hall of Fame because he bet on his own team. Now, if he bet against his team, that would be no good, but he bet on his own team. I'll look into it, yeah.
He bet on Josh, I mean, come on. It's hilarious. A special forces soldier bet the day before we invaded Venezuela that he would get. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean that what's funny about that is that like Trump seems to admire the corruption. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, smart guy, But the reason behind that is because one soldier betting on Polymarket about an operation that he's involved in is wrong and criminal, but it's the tip of a very, very large iceberg. And we've seen millions of dollars in alleged suspicious insider trading on Polymarket and Kalshi related to Maduro, the attacks on Iran, you name it. But then over in the futures and commodities markets, billions of dollars are being bet on tweets and changes and announcements in the Iran war that only a few insiders know. In other words, if you're betting on Polymarket that like the Ayatollah is going to die, you might just be guessing, or you might have some inside information, but a lot of people could make that bet. How many people, Fred, could move this is a real example, $760 million worth of oil futures in a 90-second period, exactly 15 minutes before Trump is about to tweet that there's a ceasefire extension? That is of a very select, small group of criminals. That's a group of criminals who have to have the highest level of inside information related to the Iran war. That's only in the Trump inner circle, basically, or maybe the Ayatollah's inner circle, maybe. And the ability to move hundreds of millions of dollars of futures, in 90 seconds time, and then cover their tracks sufficiently so that when the investigation comes, if it ever comes, that they won't be able to figure it out. That can't be that many people. And so that's the real scale. That's the iceberg. The special forces guy on Polymarket, that's the tip. And what Trump and his DOJ are doing is they're saying, "Oh, don't worry, we got that special forces guy who made a few $1,000s on Polymarket. Don't look over here where there's billions of dollars
Yep.
being put at stake allegedly based on insider information that only a few people very close to the president could possibly have." And that's the bigger story here.
Right. And that big a number, you can find out who that. I mean, I don't believe for 1 second this is some mysterious anonymous thing. That's not how trades work. It's the market better than I do. You don't just move $700 million anonymously, do you? I mean, am I crazy?
Right. No, I mean, one could figure out who did it, and it's called a criminal investigation, but you would have to have
What?
an administration that wanted to pursue those criminal investigations. And what we've seen since Trump took office again is that he's gutted all of the enforcement and oversight mechanisms that get at this very problem. The CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, all of their investigators in the 20 investigators were purged in their Chicago office. In the SEC, the head prosecutor resigned in protest, reportedly because she wasn't allowed to pursue Trump-related cases. The public integrity section of the Department of Justice was reduced from 36 lawyers to 2. Okay, and the guy who's Trump appointed to be the head of the CFTC is a huge proponent of prediction markets, and the DOJ is fighting state efforts to regulate prediction markets. So in that, and then of course you have Trump's son Don Jr., who's on the board of both prediction markets. You've got his other son. All 3 of his sons are involved in his own crypto enterprise, World Liberty Financial, and then there's some Witkoffs in there, there's some Lutnicks in there. And so these guys have such deep ties to the crypto prediction market ecosphere, and they stand to make so much money off of it that nobody really believes that they're going to crack down on anything much more than like the one special forces guy who they're willing to throw to the wolves. And so that's a really bad situation. That means we got another 3 years of this, which will go largely unpoliced. But the statute of limitations for it is 5 years. So if a new administration comes in, they have until 2031 to figure it out. And yes, at least for the commodities markets, they do have the ability to figure it out, but someone's going to have to actually decide to figure it out.
And Congress has power here too. I mean, the Finance Committee, the Capital Markets Committee, this is their job. The mission is to monitor the markets, ensure that they're safe and they're not being manipulated, so average Americans aren't being injured. I mean, obviously, we hopefully maybe at least a change of Congress in a year could also have some benefit, couldn't it?
Yeah, I've been talking to lawmakers all week. There's mostly Democrats, not all Democrats, and they've got a ton of bills. And this is wrapped up into the sports betting thing, because if you're like one of these sports betting platforms, you hate the prediction markets because they're taking all your customers, right? And
Yeah.
they're lobbying against prediction markets, alleging insider trading to protect their own, rice bowl. But so there's a lot of weird lobbying and politics around this. But as you're right, as long as Republicans are in control of Congress, none of these bills are going to move. And if and when Democrats take over both chambers, they very well could move it, including with some Republican support. And they all have different ideas of how to get at the problem. But at the very least, people who are working in the federal government, who are family members of people who are working in the federal government, who have a responsibility to protect sensitive information, should not be betting on the outcome of that sensitive information. Seems pretty clear.
I don't know. It seems very clear to me too. I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah.
And
that's before we talk.
now we've got the biggest set of alleged insider trading incidents in modern history.
In modern history, and it's being unchecked completely. And that's before we talk about Don Jr. going on Fox News to brag about getting a drone contract from his own father's Pentagon. That obviously the running joke on the internet, of course, is that they spent 4 years investigating Hunter Biden for trading on the family name. These guys are actually making money from the family business, which is his father's government. I mean, massive. I mean, nobody. It's funny how often I'll have people say to me, "Well, Fred, we got caught up hypocrisy." Folks, that ship sailed. They don't that gene was removed. There's no hypocrisy gene left, and anyone from Fox News, Gene Bartiromo, or whatever, Bartiromo or anybody else, they don't have a hypocrisy gene, right? But we do see just this week that they had Don Jr. or Eric the dumb one bragging about getting a contract for drones, right? That didn't they merge? Am I crazy, Josh? Did they merge a golf company with a drone company, or am I making that up?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. I mean, even if we believe every accusation against corruption accusation against Hunter Biden, and I'm not, adjudicating them right now, but I'm just saying, for the sake of this discussion, if we believe every single one was true, the amount of money that he could have taken in is maybe 1/100th of the amount of money that Jared Kushner has taken from participating in, business
There you
deals
go.
with Gulf dictatorships. 1/100th of it.
Right.
$2 billion at
Billion
least. And
dollars.
so that starts adding up to real money. Then you've got the investment vehicles that Don Jr. has, like 1789 Capital, which are invested in all these defense companies, which somehow get all the Pentagon contracts. And then you've got the World Liberty Financial, which is run by Eric Trump and Zach Witkoff, the son of Steve Witkoff. And what they do is they took a $500 million investment from the Emirati Sovereign Wealth Fund. And then what do they do with all of that money? Well, they invest it back in their joint ventures, which are, mostly Gulf funded. And, there's just no transparency or accountability at all. And then they take fees at the whole time. The fees themselves are millions of dollars just for managing all of the corruption.
Just insane. It's insane.
And so they're making money left, right, and center.
Yeah, and we've got a civilian who's invested in the district, like I said, the Saudis and the Israelis, Jared Kushner negotiating on the government's behalf, which is also a violation of the law. It is simply, I call it that, I always joke that, I'm from Missouri, so I've got, Harry Truman is our guy, and I've studied him. I have 3 Harry Truman books on my desk right now, including the one called the Watchdog about the Truman Committee on wartime construction. And one of the things he said was when he was running for president in 49, he said, I've got this Republican do nothing Congress. I call it the Republican doormat Congress. I mean, they literally, there's do nothing. There's just sitting there on the door as you walk over and wipe your feet on. These guys have no interest whatsoever in our country. The obviously illegal things occurring, do they?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's basically an impotent branch of government, and has been for a while, but it's worse now. And especially when you consider the war, the only real power they have is the power of the purse. And eventually, the administration is going to come to them very soon and ask for hundreds of billions of dollars to continue the war. And this will be the chance for those in Congress who think that's a terrible idea to exert some real power. Let's hope that they find their voice, find their spine before it's too late.
$200 billion without even having a hearing on whether war is justified. Is
Yeah,
pretty
or
shocking.
or even an explanation that makes any
Right.
sense on its face.
Right.
Their explanation is someday the Iranians were going to be so powerful that we wouldn't be able to attack them, so we had to attack them before we got close to that day. That's the circular logic that we're dealing with. It's the only justification that they put forth, is that we can imagine a scenario where the Iranians would be very hard to attack, so now they're easier to attack, so we had to attack them, which doesn't make any sense on its face. It has nothing to do with international law. It's not a just cause for attacking another sovereign country, and certainly not an imminent threat argument, under in any logical sense. And so that is a clear sign to Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un that America no longer believes that having a plausible claim to justification to attacking another country is necessary. So that's a pretty bad situation too.
It's just a mess. And we haven't even, I think you're going to be a hard deadline. I could talk to you all night. We haven't even talked about Hegseth trying to trade on the war, but then being so incompetent, he couldn't pull it off, right?
I mean, the FT report, which Hegseth denied, is that he tried to have his broker make some last minute trades, but he didn't understand how the trades works and it didn't go through. He denied it. But if it's true, it's like, he's the least competent of the corruptions, because all of the other guys found a way to make money off of it. Even that special forces guy,
Right.
the way
One guy.
off of it, but the
One
Secretary
guy.
of
The
Secretary of
guy,
Defense screwed up his corruption, which I guess is a good thing. I'm not sure.
I mean, we are kind of safe still. The joke, of course, always is they're so incompetent they can't do, it's like but at some point they're going to hire somebody competent. Well, Josh, I could talk to you all day. I know you got to go. Thank you for your time. Thanks for all the good work you do. I enjoy watching you on TV and everywhere else. So your work is right on target.
Right back.
Last plug. Where can people find you and follow you?
I'm on at Josh Rogin on Instagram. I also have a watch and ramen Instagram called at Watch the Ramen, where I review Japanese ramen restaurants and fine wristwatches. That's my plug. Meet me there. If you like ramen or watches, you're gonna be happy. If you like them
I
both,
love
you're gonna be
ramen.
very happy.
I'm a ramen guy. My very
At
first
Watch
tour in
the
army was
Ramen.
in Korea. All right, I watched the ramen. I love it. We're gonna get that on there. I appreciate you so much. Keep up the fight, brother. I look forward to talking to you again.
Likewise.
Man, what I could have talked to Josh all day. I didn't even get to all the questions I had written down to get to, but you see how serious these situations are and how ludicrous they are too. It's easy to just laugh this off, but my God, the Secretary of Defense tried to trade on an upcoming war, knowing we would need more missiles. Who is moving $700 million at once? There's a very small number of people on the planet, who could move $760 million just seconds before a presidential announcement. Now, maybe it's dumb luck. I don't believe in luck that much. Okay. I really don't believe in coincidence either. Okay. Someone is getting tipped. Someone's moving on it, either legally or illegally. We should know that. And the idea that they're prosecuting a master sergeant in the army and boasting about how they've broken the crime wide open is ridiculous. Okay. That's not the thing. Okay. That's not a thing. Okay. So that. Now, I want to close on one thing. I kind of wanted to show this. By the way, there's Watch the Ramen. I want to show you this video. So last week, I mentioned this video, and we were talking at the end of last week's show. What is driving these? And you saw the show today. What drives a Tom Cotton to say the crazy shit he says, or Lindsey Graham to beg for money on TV, or all these things? And I think our former deputy director of the FBI said it best about a year and a half ago. And I've been digging this. I had to dig this video up because it was buried in my hard drive. You wonder why they're doing these things, why they're fighting so hard to disenfranchise voters, why they're trying to change the laws, why they're contesting every election, why they want to pass the SAVE Act. If you wonder, ever wonder, this is the architect of, this is before he was deputy FBI director. This is the guy who's now back to being a podcaster again.
The thing that matters is what? Chat. What matters? Anyone? Power. Power. You can see what I'm mouthing. Power. That is all that matters. No, it doesn't, Dan. We have a system of checks and balances. Ha! That's a good one. That's really funny. We do?
Said it best himself. That was before he was the FBI director. And now he got an FBI director who's his old boss is investigating journalist. His old boss is suing the Atlantic for saying he's a drunk. Okay. Does somebody call him J. Edgar Boozer? I love that one. Somebody else called him Rum Dog Millionaire, which is really mad. But that's the folks. Never doubt what's going on here. Never doubt for 1 second what the issue really is. Power. And power allows you to send two people, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, around the world as representatives of the United States while having massive, massive financial interest in the outcome of their negotiations. It allows the sons of the President of the United States to merge their golf company with the drone company and win a contract from the president's own Department of Defense and his handpicked Secretary of Defense, who's desperately afraid of losing his job and would never dare cross the President of the United States. So yes, he's giving $26 million to the president's son for untested technology around robots. Power. Power allows you to do that. Our mission's a simple one. Take the damn power away from him. And you have that power. It's your voice. It's your feet. It's your money. So if you're wondering what you're going to do, folks, the clock's ticking. Okay? November's coming. And I know many of you are going to say in the comments, oh, Fred, there won't be an election. It's the end of the world. Look, they haven't stopped an election yet. They haven't figured out how, because we're fighting them tooth and nail. No, it's your power. It's you on the streets. It's you pressuring them. It's you getting a new Congress in place that's actually going to investigate. You want to change this? You better flip the House and the Senate. And that's on us, not on them, not on outside forces. It's you. You want to stop power grabs? Use your power. So with that, that's your call to action this week, folks. Get off your feet. Get off your ass, I was going to say. I'm trying to be polite now. Get off your butt. Get in the fight. I'm not talking about fighting. I will never encourage violence because I've seen where that leads in countries I've unfortunately had to fight in. Okay? No. Use your voices. Use your pens. Use your keyboards. Use your feet. Use your wallets. I'm begging you with all my heart, support candidates that can win races. even candidates that might not, because you know what, folks? When you're looking at Afton Bain moving the needle 17 points in deep red Tennessee, your money matters everywhere. Don't believe for 1 second that races can't be won, because right now the world is changing. Get on the boat. And with that, I'll let you go. It's been a great show. I appreciate you being here with me. As always, find out what we're doing outside the show at fpwellman.substack.com. That QR code in the corner goes right to it. Or you can go to fpwellman.substack.com, scan that QR code, join us there. It's free to join. Paid subscriptions help us pay for all these wonderful things like Satchel the intern, who is keeping me alive. All those things are paid for by you, but it's all for free. You can follow all the work we're doing, just this and that other project I'm doing outside of this. I would love to have your support for all those things. In the meantime, folks, we're not done yet. Don't believe it for 1 second. You've got the power to fix it. Use your power, and we're going to fight their power. With that, I'll see you next week.